So if you've considered buying an investment property here in San Diego County or thought to yourself, it's too late. I mean, home values are too high, mortgage rates are too high. There's no way you can actually be profitable and make money with an investment property here in San Diego. Well, I'm here to tell you, you are wrong. Kind of. Well, we're going to dive into that. So this is going to be Investing 101. My name is Dan Parker, your San Diego real estate resource. This is my Answer Your Questions series where I take actual questions that you have and give you a full dedicated video to answering those questions. So this might be a little bit like drinking from a fire hose, but that's because we had 3 questions from you all from @BillSilva7932. Yes, he wants to see more investment videos about people looking to buy a home here in San Diego. Specifically interested in 1031 exchange, Prop 90, which way to go, at MD9121. He's interested in investment videos, topics such as ROI, rent amount in particular neighborhoods, which neighborhoods are long-term, midterm, etc. And lastly, we had at if then 1526, one of our regular commenters and viewers here on the channel. Is there such thing as an investment property co-op? Great question, where a group can just give money to smart people and receive dividends. That actually sounds like it'd be a pretty good way to go, right? So we're going to dive into this today. So if you're looking to invest in a property here in San Diego, there are a couple of sites that you'd want to go to first just to start to analyze, does this make sense for me? And so where I would recommend to start at is actually going to be Zillow or Redfin. The great thing about these sites, I mean, they've spent a lot of money on the interface, so they work really well. But you can come in here, put in your budget, take a look at a property. Let's see, what is this right here? I don't really like that one. That one looks better. So for $1.2 million, you can purchase this property right here. And the nice thing about the site is you can actually come down and take a look at what they believe the rent zestimate is. So for a $1.2 million property, this one they're saying the rent zestimate is around $4,500 a month. You could go over to Redfin and see what they think the rent zestimate is. It's going to change. It's going to be different. Neither one is going to be particularly accurate, but when you're starting your search, this is a decent place to start. So we have that property there. Let's take a look, maybe a little bit farther out, a little bit more bang for our buck. Let's take a look at this property, 1.125, and they're saying the rent value is $4,300. Okay, so we're gonna start with this. We have this property here. Now the next site that you can go to actually bring this along and get a little bit more information is called AirDNA. And AirDNA is more specifically set for like short-term rentals, but this is going to help you analyze if you're going to put this on Airbnb, how much money can you make? And the reason why this is important is because if you look at a long-term rental, if you're going to get, let's just say you're able to get $4,500 a month for a long-term rental. Well, if you rent that out short-term, more than likely, you're probably going to get around 50% more revenue, maybe even somewhere near 100% more revenue, double those numbers, because those short-term rates for a fully furnished property are going to be at a premium. Just keep in mind, it also means there's going to be a lot more management involved. There are going to be more costs involved. But overall, in a market where it's hard to become profitable in an investment property, especially when you're putting 20% down, this could be a hack or easier way to be able to cash flow and make some money. So come over to AirDNA. I know this is cut off a little bit, but you can come over here into Explore Short-Term Rental, Property Earning Potential. We're going to paste that property address that we just saw. So on AirDNA, this is the rentalizer. It's going to look at this property and it's going to tell you what they believe you can make on this property as a short-term rental. And for this one specifically, they're saying $120,000 for the year, which breaks down to around $10,000 per month. And remember when I was saying you can make just about twice as much on a short-term rental? This is exactly what I'm talking about. So from somewhere around $50,000 to $60,000 from a long-term rental, you have a potential revenue on a short-term rental of $120,000. Now this is saying operating expenses 42, so net operating income 78. Cool. Again, these are starting points. So if you're looking at properties and you want to see how can I make money, what is it going to look like, put in all of your costs versus your revenue and start to compare one versus the other. Now we have a very specific resource that you can utilize, and there are a lot of these out there. You can create your own, but we have a property investment calculator. Again, I know this is cut off a little bit, but here we go. Best Life Property Calculator. If you look down in the links below, I will include this. It'll be free to download. I'm not charging anything for it, but you can plug in all of this information and you could come up with some of the standard like rates or some of the standard things people use to analyze properties, which is going to be rent to price ratio, ROI, cap rate, and cash on cash return. I'm not going to go into heavy specifics on what each of those mean, but you can take a look and you can see, you can utilize resources like Bigger Pockets to find out what those mean and what you should actually be calculating. But that's going to be a good resource for you to plug in those numbers from Zillow, from Redfin, from AirDNA, and just start to see, if I put X amount of dollars down on this property and I'm making X amount of dollars every single month, am I actually going to make money? Am I going to be cash flow positive? That's the place to start, because that is actually a challenging thing to do in this market unless you're willing to get creative. And that's kind of what we're going to get into here on this video. So the other things about having a home in California is, yes, it's expensive. Yes, it's hard for your property to actually make money. And in fact, I have a perfect example. We have a rent or a property for sale right now. My clients are renting that property to some renters for $3,500 a month. The property is valued at $900,000, which means it's close to a $7,000 a month mortgage if you were to put $20,000 or 20% down. So just think of that. You put 20% down, it's going to cost you $7,000 a month. Or if you were to rent that property, it's going to cost you $3,500 a month. Maybe it should be closer to $4,000. So the other way that people make money with investment properties here in San Diego, and in fact, for the last couple of years, in a certain way, they've actually made a lot more money than other states where they're more cash flow positive. It's because of this one thing. It's because of appreciation. Over the last 10 years, we've seen appreciation in San Diego of around 6 to 7%. Like if you actually break it all down, there were a couple of years during COVID where we were seeing appreciation of 20% year over year. Now that's not regular, that's not expected. But if we continue to see property values going up, then that $1 million home today, a year from now, if it goes up another 7.5%, is going to be worth $75,000 more. Now, if you were to sell, you have closing costs, you have all these different things, but appreciation is real, and that is a real aspect of investing in properties, is that those properties are going to appreciate. You could eventually sell that home for more money. So that is one of the benefits here in San Diego, specifically you get, and I think we're going to continue to see. It's no guarantee, but we're going to continue to see it more than likely. Now, if you want some more resources on how to figure out how to invest, again, Bigger Pockets, they have a great podcast I'd recommend. I listen to it all the time. These guys are very knowledgeable. They bring on very successful people at investing in properties, and they'll tell you as a whole what you should be looking for. Maybe you should be looking in San Diego. Maybe you shouldn't be looking in San Diego, but they'll help you come up with the information that you need to know. If you do want to do a short-term rental, Rob here, he actually has a really great YouTube channel that we utilized when we were looking for a short-term rental out in Joshua Tree. If you want to talk to us specifically about buying an investment property here in San Diego, just check out our website, bestlifehometeam.com. We have links for that. We have links for a discovery session and everything else down below. Makes it really easy for you to figure out exactly what we're talking about, what our resources are, just right down there so you can check it out. The other thing I wanted to talk about is this is probably the best way for a new investor to start investing in a property. You have personal residence that you live in, and then you have investment properties. Well, what if you were to combine those two things? And this is called house hacking. It's not a new term. I'm sure you've probably heard it, but essentially what it means is you live in a house that you're also using for some rental income, whether that's a 4-bedroom house and you're renting out 2 of the rooms, or if you have a house with an ADU or a duplex and you live in one of the units and you rent one out. This is a great way to get started in investing for a lot of different reasons. For one, it's going to be cheaper money. It's going to be, you're typically going to get a lower rate on your mortgage to be able to purchase that house as a primary residence and then rent out some of those rooms. Another option or another opportunity for that to be a primary residence is when you live in a house for 2 years and then you sell that house, you get $250,000 exemption on capital gains, which means if your property appreciates by $250,000, you sell the house, you don't owe the government any money on that $250,000 gain. So you get to keep that, and then you can push it into another property. So when you're getting started with investing, house hacking is a really good way to go. It's not super easy to find duplexes here in San Diego, but it is definitely on the easier side to find a property with maybe a detached garage that can more easily be converted into an ADU, or a property with an ADU. Maybe you have to get a little bit more outside of the city limits to find those opportunities, but they definitely are there. And then lastly, if you're looking for an investment opportunity that is really just sit back and give your money to smart people to invest in properties, there's 2 different ways to do it. And it's called syndications or REITs, or REIT is going to be real estate investment trust. So the real estate investment trust, I really like kind of how they break it down right here. Real estate investment trust you're giving your money to a blind fund, and that fund is going to go to purchase multiple properties. And whether it's short-term rentals, long-term rentals, fix and flip, whatever they're doing, that fund, it's almost like a real estate stock that you are purchasing. It's going to be lower risk, and it's going to be maybe not as high of gains because it's a little bit lower risk, but it's easy to sit back, put your money into real estate, and let other people do the work. The other opportunity is going to be a syndication, and this is going to be a little bit harder to find. This is going to be potentially a little bit higher risk. But the cool thing about syndication is that means that someone has identified a property that they want to invest in. Again, either fix and flip, short-term, long-term rental. Every deal can be different, but that syndication means they're ready to buy that property, but they need some investors to help invest in that property. So if you find people that you really trust for syndication, this is a way to be hands-off, invest in property, and have some potential massive gains on your investment. So those are some different opportunities. The last thing that we mentioned, or last thing that you mentioned in the question for this video, had to do with 1031 exchange. And so 1031 exchange or Prop 90, these are two ways to either avoid paying more property tax or defer your capital gains tax. So it's two different things. Prop 90 has to do if you own a house, you live in California, and you are selling that house, moving to another property, and you are above the age of 55. Now you can move that tax base into that new property so that you're not paying hundreds to thousands of dollars more every single month because of how much homes have appreciated. So that's a huge benefit for 55 plus in California, especially if you're on a fixed income. So that's not really on the investing side. 1031 is very specific to investing. That has to do with selling an investment property, buying another investment property, and those capital gains, you don't have to pay the taxes on them right away. You're deferring that payment and pushing it into the new property so that down the road, you'll have to pay it later. And so this is something that a lot of smart, wealthy people use. They utilize a 1031 exchange to be able to defer taxes because they're using that money to make more money. There's huge benefits to that. And so if you get to that point in the process, for most people, it makes sense to go down using that path. I'm not a financial advisor, but for most people, it's going to make sense to go down that path. So hopefully you found this very helpful. If you want any customized approach or help buying a home here in San Diego, you can text home to 619-719-1122, or you can check out our discovery session link below where we can actually pull up some maps, show you different parts of San Diego, help you understand what neighborhoods would make the most sense, whether it's a personal or an investment property, and help you find those deals throughout the county. So I hope this was helpful. Appreciate you watching. Drop your comments and questions down below, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on the next video.